This video will discuss parts of a flower and pollination. By the end of this video, you should be able to identify the parts of a flower. Flowers are the reproductive organ of the plant. Plants that reproduce sexually have flowers, whether they are traditional or non-traditional flowers. Plants that reproduce asexually typically do not have flowers. There are male flowers, which are flowers with only male reproductive parts, and female flowers, which are flowers with only female reproductive parts. However, most flowers have both male and female reproductive parts. There are many components of a flower. Take a moment to look at this diagram to learn some of the parts of a flower. The female part of the flower is known as the pistil. A pistil may be composed of one or more carpels. The pistil contains the stigma, style, ovary, and ovule. The pistil is typically found in the center of the flower. At the top of the pistil, you will find the stigma. Holding up the stigma, you will find the style, which connects to the ovary, which contains one or more ovules. The male parts of a flower are called the stamen. The stamen consists of the anther and the filament. The stamen typically surround the pistil. At the top of the stamen, you will find the anther, which produces pollen. The anther is held up by the filament. The flower is attached to the stem at a peduncle. You will notice sepals, which are leaf-like structures that protect the flower buds. The receptacle is the bottom of the flower. Petals surround the flower. They are typically brightly colored to attract pollinators. The female reproductive organ is known as the carpel. A pistil may contain one or more carpels. At the top of the pistil, you will find the stigma. Holding up the stigma, you will find a style. A pollen tube runs through the style to the ovary, which contains one or more ovules. The male reproductive organ is the stamen. The stamen contains an anther, which produces pollen held up by a filament. The purpose of a flower is to be a reproductive organ, which means that we need to take a female gamete and join it with a male gamete. In other words, pollen grains must make it to an ovule to create a seed. Pollen grains on the anther enter the pistil through the stigma. They travel through the pollen tube in the style and go into the ovary, where they join or merge with an ovule, making an embryo. We call this the seed. You might be asking how the pollen gets from the anther to the stigma. This is typically done by insects such as bees, the wind, and vertebrate animals such as hummingbirds and bats. Flowers have bright or brilliantly colored petals to attract insects and other pollinators. This is one of their adaptations. Another adaptation is that they secrete nectar. Insects and other animals will drink this nectar as a food source. The benefits of having bright or brilliantly colored petals and secreting nectars is that they attract pollinators. Pollen is attracted to those pollinators, such as insects, hummingbirds, or bats, and is spread from the anther to the stigma as they move around the flower or to different flowers. Bees are particularly adept at pollination. This is because bees will work a particular type of flower per day, for days. They like to work one type of flower until they've gotten all of the food they can. This ensures that the flowers are well pollinated, and it means that bees are great for the pollination of crops. Take a moment to look at this diagram and quiz yourself on the parts of a flower. Hopefully you are able to identify all of the parts of the flower. Here are the answers. I hope this video helped you achieve the goals of identifying the parts of the flower and learning about pollination.